Hey everyone! So today I am finally releasing my guide for an Arcanist. I have been requested several times by people on YouTube and people from my guild to make one because playing Arcanist can be a little complicated. So let's get started. We're going to start with the pros and cons of an Arcanist. So the pros is that it's probably the top farming class. It's between that and Seraph, if not the first. One of the second pros is it is the ideal mage class for Legendary Coliseum. Although it is good to have Mentalist there, Arcanist is the way to go for Legendary Coliseum. Arcanist can also output really high DPS if it is used and built correctly. And I mean this, you have to use it and build it correctly or you will not get the damage output you are looking for. It's not on the list, but they are not as squishy as Mentas. They can take a little bit more of a hit. And Arcas are perfect for T4 dungeons. Some of the cons of having an Arca is that you need a Mentalist for your best damage output. Period. Like you won't be able to hit your highest damage without a Mentalist there. Multiple skill rotations. You'll be spamming keys the entire time you're running against bosses. This is usually where people change their minds and they don't want to run an Arca because you do have a lot of key pressing. This class is not ideal for T0s and T3 dungeons, but you can still use them for that. It just will take a little bit longer than using ADOC. And the last con is you will most likely be changing your hotkeys more often than any other class. And we'll get into that a little bit later. So a lot of people are wondering why I chose an Arcanist. Well, I actually originally hated this class. I've never been a huge mage fan in any game I played. But I picked it up because that was the class my guild needed for Secret Room at the time, and I ended up just falling in love with the class. For me, Arca feels like a more rewarding gameplay, which is the biggest reason why I've kept it. When I run it, I feel very satisfied that I did everything that I could to do my best. And I also like that I don't just sit there and stare at the screen while it auto attacks. That's the main reason why I like Arcanist and Mentalist in this game. You might be asking yourself, I'm new Fizzy, why should I pick up Arca over Seraph? Well, I'm not saying you should pick an Arcanist over a Seraph. Seraph is a great starter class, if not probably the best. I actually started with the Seraph class because for me, it was the easiest to farm with. But in the long run, Arcas are actually a lot cheaper to build. Of course, if you know me, I'm cheap. I love cheap things. If I can do it real cheap, I will take that route instead of trying to spend all the money that I don't have. But as you know, my advice will always be pick the class you want to play, not what you think would have the best DPS output. Choose what you will have fun with. And I'm saying this very wholeheartedly. I honestly believe a lot of the people that play this game choose their classes because they want high DPS. You will get high DPS if you put the work in for that class. It doesn't matter the class. So if you are watching this because you think, oh, I can get crazy ass damage like Fizzy, um, you could, yes, but you need to have passion for the class. You need to understand it and really put the time in to get good with the class, and that will be with any class. So like I say every time, choose a class you want to play, not the class that has the highest DPS. Now this is going to be a relatively long video with a lot of information, so if there's something specific you want to learn about and you don't want to have to go through the entire video to figure out what you need to learn, I will put times below and where those specific topics are and when they start. So if you want to skip through the video, get to those specific topics, do that, please. I know I'm one of those people that I kind of get like, if the video is too long, I find it disinteresting. But because there's just so much information for Arcanist, this is going to be a long video, just a fair warning. So today I will be going over a damage build, an HP build, skill rotations, elements, AoE skills, random skills, and prems and beads. So my first damage build, I called my Frankenstein set because I mixed a lot of different rarity, like a mix between IA and PvE rarities. When if you ask anyone, they're always going to tell you to go full increased attack rarities for mage classes. You do not have to do that if you're going with a clean set. We can get more into that later. So for my build, I have all insane increased attack rarities. I use a Mega Fox. I have 5 lines of intelligence, 25 lines of increased attack, and 27 lines of PvE damage. I use a Dark Oroth mask and cloak, ethereal set, a Dragon Lord plushie and staff, Dark Oroth jewelry set, and Dark Oroth armor. My base HP with my YOLO set, that's what I call it, is 2.7 mil, which is not bad. My highest hit is 678 million. I know I can get higher. I've seen people get higher. And some of the tips while building your damage is to go to Mikaro's simulator on Discord, download that and use it. It helps you just keep track of whatever you need, whether you're making Arca or Slayer or whatever. This just helps you keep track of everything. And so back to the rarities. If you're buying a clean set, you don't have to go for all insane IA rarities. You can have some PV rarities mixed in and still get away with the build. For example, let's say I have 2 insane PvE rarities on my entire set. So instead of 27 lines of PvE, I'd lower it to 25 lines and then add the 2 extra to IA to balance it out. But here is the kicker. You need to remember to make sure your PvE and IA is balanced. I'm talking prems, I'm talking buffs, I'm talking everything. You need to make sure it's balanced. And I'm not just meaning the lines. So when I full prem, full ready to go and run Coliseum, my IA and PvE are really close. My PvE is 921 and my IA is 920. You want to get those numbers as close as possible. And you need lines of intelligence as well. But the reason you need to have it balanced is I have tested it whether or not if more IA helps or more PvE helps, and I found that neither is true. The closer you have these numbers together, the better your damage will be. You can also use a unicorn instead of a fox if you'd like, but you need at least 6 to 7 more lines of intelligence on your awakes if you decide to use a unicorn instead of a fox. And also account for positive and negative RNG on your weapons and armor. If you don't pay attention to it, it can mess up your entire build. So if you've seen my other videos, you will know that the HP build can be made cheaply, but I will explain how I do my HP build with my Arca. So with any class, this is always going to be the same. Your HP rarities need to be insane or legendary. Your pet needs to be a Mega Lion. All your awake lines need to be stamina, HP, HP. That's what you want. You want more HP than stamina, but remember you still need stamina lines in there. For Arca, you need Archmage, PvP, Slime Cloak, Aurora Ballmask, Nassen, Malefic Staff, and Malefic Shield. And with all that, I have, at full stamina, I have 14.6 million HP, and with the Eel Bug, it's 10 million. Most people would build this only for Colo in mind, but with the new additions to dungeons, I suggest making one ASAP. And the reason I use an Archmage armor set is because it actually has more HP from the effects than even Dark Oroth armor. You don't have to be as cheap when it comes to me, or when you don't have to be as cheap as me when it comes to the shield and weapon. The high tier weapons and shields actually have more HP than the ones I currently have, but changing it now wouldn't really add that much more to begin with. So I just stuck with the cheap stuff. You also don't need to plus 20 your set. Currently I have Nassen, and that's the set you want to go with, is Nassen over Arbol. But when you can get a chance, you want to get Dark Oroth tank accessories over Nassen. I haven't gotten mine yet. I've been focusing on other things right now, but those are the two you'd want to go with. If you've seen my HP swap guide, you know how to do the rest, but for those who don't, use UAS Awakes for HP swaps until you can afford to buy EAS Awakes. No matter the class, all HP swaps need those lines. I'm repeating myself because it's very important. The lines for the Awakes, you want stamina, HP, HP. The HP percentage builds off of your stamina, but you still need more of that percentage than a stamina stat. So for skill rotations, you'll only be really using these when you're fighting bosses. The rest of the time, you'll be using your AoE skills. Some of the definitions I'll be using in this part of the video, I'm going to go over now just so I don't have to explain as I go. It's going to be proc, flux, counter, and element debuff. So proc means to initiate. Flux is a buff you get from Arca, Menta, Serra gears. It increases magical and PvE damage for a short period of time, about 5 seconds. And then counter is the boss's opposite element, while element debuff is the boss's base element. And an FYI for Flux, if you don't have Dark Oroth armor, you will need to use Water Ball in your rotation to proc your Flux. I usually cast it after the boss's base element, the element debuff. So let's get started. So let's begin with going over the elements as an Arcanist and in-game in total, because it's extremely important to know this. So as an Arca, you, unlike a Seraph or Mentalist, you actually use element on your staff, and the element you put on your staff is going to reflect your counter. So this is the wheel of elements in Insanity Fly for Fun. You can actually go and Google this picture super easily, and download it. But once you understand the flow of the elements, then honestly, you're not going to need it. So for this, we're going to be, for the elements for Arca, for the skills, we're going to be using Firebird, Void, Stone Spear, Lightning Strike, and Ice Shark. So the base rotation for all bosses is Cursed Mine, or CM, as people call it in-game, your element debuff, which is the boss's base element, and then the counter. So for example, let's say you are fighting a fire boss. You're going to be using Cursed Mine, Firebird as the element debuff, and then Ice Shark as the counter. And then you're going to keep spamming Ice Shark until this cooldown for Cursed Mine is up, and then you're going to repeat the process. So once the cooldown for Cursed Mine is done, you're going to cast it again, Cursed Mine, the element debuff, and then the counter, and you're going to spam the counter again until the CD is up. And I know it sounds really repetitive, but once you get used to it, it's really easy. So when practicing skill rotations, I like to go full stamina on an HP swap, or if you don't have that, take a tank friend to help you. But essentially, you will be going to Oroth mages and practice your rotations on them. The less you're doing less damage, but you get more practice in because you can just keep rotating through the rotations. I know this sounds crazy and probably very annoying, and you're most likely not going to do it because when I tell people to do this, they don't. But trust me, when I'm advising this, knowing your rotations and getting comfortable with your hotkeys is vital for Arcanist. Vital. And I am trying to emphasize that as much as possible. If you want to master Arca, you need to practice your skill rotations. Period. If you don't have a good setup with your hotkeys, you will be doing little to no damage on bosses because you're going to be panicking. You need to be very familiar with your hotkeys. It's not like any other class where you're sitting there and auto-attacking or have one skill that you're exhibiting. Arcas have a lot of different skills. You have the most keys to press while fighting bosses. So please heed my advice on this. Go practice your skill rotations. You will not be sorry. For the AoE skills, there are three main ones that you use. The main one you'll be using the most is Eva. Um, it's used majority for regular gameplay. Then there's E-Shock, which decreases the magical defense of a mob. And then Blizzard, which is a ranged AoE. So for E-Shock and Eva, this is your ideal rotation when it's under a time limit, for example, Secret Room or Coliseum. The casting rotation is E-Shock, Eva, 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 repeat. Just over and over and over like that again. It'll increase the damage. E-Shock will increase the damage of Eva. So, for example, when I'm running Coliseum with an AoE round, E-Shock will hit for about 40 mil, and then I'll hit Eva and Eva, and on the third Eva is usually when I get Flux, and I'll hit like almost 120 mil. It's crazy. As for Blizzard, it's the perfect farming, not leveling, AoE. The range and radius of the AoE will give you max speed while running dungeons and farming resources. But as an FYI, it doesn't, in the beginning, it's not always it's not the strongest. But once you get high enough damage, you can pretty much use it to one-shot everything. As for the random skills, as Arca, there's Root and Blink Pool. And if you played the original game, you probably already know at least Blink Pool. And if you've been playing any of the Fly for Fun games, you know what Root is. But I'm still going to go over it. Root is actually a skill that you need to start using almost immediately, especially if you're running Coliseum, because it actually makes it easier for killing imps. We were practicing having mages lure imps and then rotating Root back and forth. That way we don't have to swap to an HP and we kill the imp instantly. For Blink Pool, it's teleporting, as most know, from one spot to another. It's good for a lot of different things. I mostly use it for when I die, I can just teleport to the next pocket ping. Because I'm lazy and it's fast. Here's the last section of this video, which is prems and beats. Now, this is kind of a lot of information, and if you have any questions about the prems and the beads, please comment. I will help you as much as I can. So, unless you're a whale in the game, the balloons you're going to be using the most as an Arca are yellow and peak. Red balloons should be saved for boss hunting and Coliseum if you are poor. And as something most people don't know is you actually should be using strength prems and intelligence prems, because intelligence on an Arca doesn't directly affect your attack set. I can't speak. Intelligence doesn't directly affect your attack stat in your stats window, similarly to Seraphs. If you have a Mensa, then you know when you're adding intelligence, you'll see that your attack stat goes up. That is not the case for Arcanists or Seraphs. But if you add strength, then it does increase that base attack. Basically, strength prems will give you additional damage. But I'm not saying go full strength in your stats. I'm just saying use the strength prems everything with everything else while you are full intelligence on your base stats. Your skills are damaged from your intelligence, so don't think of it as oh, I don't need any intelligence at all. No, that's not true. Strength prems are purely just to add a little bit of damage to your base stat. And for beats, you can go about this two ways, and either way will really work. Mine takes a little more time, but there are guides on the Insanity Fly for Fun forum. Those are fine too, they work. But if you want to know how I do it, when I set up beat combos, I actually do it last after building my Arca, or actually not just Arca, but any class really. I use the beads as a way to rebalance my PvE and IA so I can reach my goal. Um, like I said, you don't have to do that, especially if you're not using Makuro's sim, but that is my advice, is to actually do B combos after building whatever class you have, just so you can make sure your everything in your stats is balanced. Thank you everyone for watching. Remember to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have any questions, just comment below.